Hello guys, in today's tutorial we're going to make a 2D car, and I've got here a default scene with some road. It doesn't have a collider yet. I have here a car which I will add in a second. So first I've got this road that I'm going to add a polygon collider to, and as you can see it automatically collider that fits into the shape that I did. Now let's add a car, and I got here the car sprite, but I need it to be two sprites, so let's make it multiple. Sprite editor, apply, and now we're going to split them up into two sprites. So here we got our car. Let's slice, set it to be automatic, and slice, and after a few seconds, there you go. As you can see these little gray lines in here which say that those are the limits of the sprites. So now I will hit apply, just like that, and now we have two shapes in here. So I'm going to add the car, and I'm going to also add two wheels, and as you can see the wheels are a bit too big, so I'll make them, if you want you can leave them at this size, but I want them to be smaller. So I can just change one and copy it. So I'm going to press Shift and Alt to make it scale equally, and maybe a little bit smaller, like so. It just has to be more like there. It doesn't really matter where it is. And Control D to copy. There you go. And now let's add colliders to all of this. So first to the car, just like I did with the road, I'm going to add a polygon collider to it. And as you can see, it adds automatically. If you don't want it to be like this, you can change the collider by using this button over here and moving some points around. But I'm not going to do that. Now into the wheels, I'm going to add a circle collider, just like that, and as you can see it goes perfectly, and to this wheel too. And I also forgot to add rigid bodies 2D to everything, so I'm going to select everything of the car and add rigid bodies 2D, and now everything has a rigid body. The next thing is to connect the car to the wheels, because right now if I press play they just go one to each side, and that's not what we want. Okay, so we're going to connect the car to the wheels, and to connect them all you have to go into the car and add a joint to it, but not any joint, you want to add the wheel joint 2D. So you click on that, and as you can see it makes here a joint. It's a little bit weird, so now we're going to change it, and to change it just say that okay, I want this joint to be attached to the front wheel. So first, by the way, let me name this front wheel, and this the back wheel, just like so. So I want this joint to be attached to the front wheel, so I drag the front wheel into the connected rigid body, and as you can see now it's there. And now I also want to add another wheel joint to the back wheel, so again wheel joint 2D, and drag the back wheel into here, just like that. And now as you can see the wheels are connected, but their points, the point where they should be, which is the point where this line appears, is over here. So now if I play, the wheels will go all wanky, as you can see. So to change this point you have to have the car selected and press Alt, and if you press Alt and click and drag, you can drag the point. So say I want this wheel, the back wheel, to be exactly in this point, so the wheel, as it spawns, the wheel will go into that point. And I want the front wheel to be in here, so the wheel, okay, maybe below, so the wheel will go in there. And now we got our basic car setup. As you can see, nothing breaks down, it's fine, but we can't control it, and it doesn't have much friction. So the first thing that we're going to do is add friction to it. So I'm going to create here physics 2D materials. I'm going to create 3 for now, one for the road, one for the wheels, and one for the car itself. Okay, And to the road, in the road one, you can set the friction for to whatever I want. I'm going to set it to 1. And to the wheels, I'm going to set the friction to maybe 2, and the wheels sometimes bounce a bit, so I'll make the bounciness coefficient to be 0.5 and drag it into each wheel and into the car chassis. You can make it very slippery, so very little friction. So imagine that the car flips, then the car would slide a lot. Okay, and now I just applied everything to the car. I just applied those materials into the car. And now let's get, just before I get into the scripting, and I'm going to explain you what we're going to do. So what we're going to do is we use this wheel joint, and in this wheel joint we'll set this use motor to true, and then here change the motor speed and the motor force in the script itself. So without further ado, let's add the components, car controller, and open it. And we got here our car controller, and the first thing that we have to do is get the references for these joints. So here before the start function, we do public wheel joint 2D, and this is a joint for the front wheel, and we also want a joint for the back wheel. And because you can't just control the motors just with the joints, you could if you're just changing stuff here, but in the script we need something else to control them, and that is a joint motor 2D. So I'm going to add here a joint motor 2D to each wheel, so motor front, and another one to the back, motor back. Okay, and also we're going to change some of the properties of the car. We're going to change two properties of the wheel joints, so it will be the motor speed and the maximum motor force. So we're going to create two variables for each one, one speed for going forward and one speed for going back. So public float speed forward, public float speed backward, and also the torque. And what the torque is the basically the acceleration, the amount of time that it takes to the car to reach that speed that we set up earlier. So torque forward and torque backward, and this is just the way that I found to control the car. You can add any other variables. Okay, we got here some basic variables. Now we're going to set the code here to control the car, and I'm going to do it in the update, though you could also do it, and probably it's better to make it as a fixed update, but anyways we're going to do it here. If input dot get axis raw vertical is greater than 0, and to explain to you what this is doing, let me go into edit, project settings, input, and as you can see Unity has some axes set up for us. One of them is the vertical axis, which is composed by the S and the W key, or the up and the down key, and one of them is a negative, one of them is a positive. So if you press up or W, the axis raw value, this returns 1. If you press S or down, then this value returns -1, because those are the negative values. If you press nothing, it returns 0. So if you're pressing W in this case, or the up key, then we would want our car to go forward. So what we do is set the speed of the motor to be something. So we want the motor in the front to be equal to motor in the front dot motor speed to be equal to speed going forward, just like that. And then we also want to set the torque to be something. So we want to set the motor in the front dot maximum torque to be equal to the torque going forward that we set in the top. So this is setting the speed and the acceleration that the front wheel should have. And now we have to attribute this to the front wheel, joint. So we're going to the front wheel dot motor equals the motor that we're just changing. So this, and this changes the motor in the front or the front wheel. And we're going to do this exact same thing but to the back wheel. So we want to give the back wheel the same speed going forward, the same torque, and the motor will be different. So we want the motor to not to be the front motor but the back motor, or motor, I never know how to say it. And we want to change this on the back wheel, and we want to set the back wheel motor to be the motor in the back. Okay, and this just makes the car go forward, I hope. Now let's do the same if we press the other key. If we press the S key, for instance, so else if vertical is smaller than 0, so we're pressing the S or the down key, then we also want to set stuff to the car, but we want it to go back. So we set the speed to be the back speed, and the torque to be the torque going back, and the speed going back, and the torque going back, and just like that. So let's see if this is working. Save it in Unity on the car. Now we have this script over here, and we're going to drag the front wheel joint, so the one that has the front wheel rigid body, into here. And now let's say what's the speed that we want the car to go forward. Let's say 100, and going backward we want minus 100. And the torque usually is something very big, like you see here, so you can just set that for now. So now we have our variable set up. Let's see how our car goes. I play. If I press our W key, as you can see, our car goes back very slowly instead of going forward. And if I press our S key, our car goes forward instead of going back. So we can either change the values in here or multiply them by -1 in here. So here in the script I'm going to multiply every speed by -1. So times -1 times -1 times -1 and times -1. There you go. And I could also just change the signs in here, but I wanted to change there just to be more intuitive. And I want to make it get higher speeds so that you can see it better. If I play, you'll see that our car now flies, or kind of flies. As you can see, it can go back and it can go forward, and we got here a cool car. But as you can see, it's a bit slower, slower. And if I'm not pressing anything right now, and the car is going forward like hell. So we're going to first set what we want to do when we're not pressing any button, and that's simple. Else, if we're not pressing any button, then we don't want to use the motors. So I set the back wheel dot use motor to be false, and the same thing to the front wheel. So front wheel dot use motor equals false, and of course I have to set it to true whenever I press a key. And this is just enough. I don't have to set it to true anywhere, because when I attribute the back wheel dot motor to be equal to some motor, it automatically sets this to true, so that's not needed. And while we are in the script, I'm going to add two new variables, which is if we want the car to have traction in the front or in the back. So bool traction front, another public bool traction in the back, and set it to true by default, just so that the car doesn't move. Okay, and now if here inside each one of this stuff, of these ifs, I do if traction front, then the car the motor will move, the front motor, because here we're changing the front motor. And now we do the same to the back motor. So if traction back, the back motor moves, and I put here that as well. And now the same thing to this one. So just like that. And at this point, this is just copy and paste with a little bit of care, just not to mess things up. And there you go. And now we have a car that has traction, and now it doesn't have that bug because we added this. So let me show you. If I press play, I'm going to go forward, and now I'm not pressing any key and the car stops instead of going to the front. And for instance, let's say that I don't want to have another front traction, so if I have only the front wheel on land, I can't do anything as it's happening right now, because as you can see, the back wheel is on the air and the front wheel is not rotating, even though I'm pressing the buttons. As you can see, this wheel is rotating, so we have back traction in this case. So I now press that, and as you can see, the car can move. One last thing before we end with the tutorial is I'm going to add controls for us to be able to tilt the car, to rotate him while he's in the air. So we're going to add even more variables in here, which will be the public float car rotation speed. And now here in the update function, we're going to control this using the axis horizontal, which is the A and the D key, or the left and the right key. So if input.getAxisRaw horizontal, different from 0, so if we're pressing a button, then what I want to do is to get this rigid body component of the car and change its angular speed by applying a force, a rotational force or a torque. So what I do is get component rigid body 2D. It is getting the rigid body 2D of our car, and we want to add torque, not force, we want to add torque. And now we set the value of the torque, and I set it to be car rotation speed, which is a really bad name, but whatever. And because we want it to change with whether we're pressing W or S, we multiply by input.getAxisRaw. And as you can see here, we put times -1. Here we also have to put that, so that we change it rotates in the correct direction. Okay, save. We change here the variable that we just added, which is the car rotation. Let's check, for instance, 1000. If I hit play, and now if I press the D key, oh, as you can see, that's a bit too much of a rotation, but it's there. Just set to 100, and as you can see, now we can change a little bit the car's rotation. And as you can see, the wheels are a bit wonky, but you can change it by changing here in the wheel joint, the suspension here in the wheel joint. So I can change the frequency to 100, and in this joint as well. And maybe the wheels won't get so wonky, as you can see. Now they're more stuck to the car. And that was it for today, guys. One final thing that I'll tell you is now you have plenty of variables to change the car. You have the variable of the speed that you want the car to go forward, the variable that you want the speed that you want to go back, the torque going forward and back, the direction, back or forward, the rotation, and there are even more variables you can change. For instance, the road, you can set the friction of the road to be 0.1 if it's, for instance, the car is going on ice or something else, or the car wheels. If you want to make a rock crawler, a car that can crawl through mountains very well, you make this up into 10, and you'll see that the car won't slip. And here, if you want the car to be bouncy, imagine that you have a bouncy car. For instance, this is just examples. You can change the bounciness of the car, the car's armature. I don't remember the name of this, but this part of the car. And also, you can also change the linear drag of the car, the angular drag, the mass to make it heavier or lighter, the gravity scale, and also, as I was talking, the suspension of each wheel. You have the frequency, which is how quick the wheels go to the position where they should. So for instance, right now this wheel is here, and the position where it should go is here. So if this number is a big one, so if this number here is a big one, it will go quick into that position. And you got here the angle of the suspension, so as you can see it's this 90-degree angle, and this one as well. And if I change it, the suspension is a little bit weird and goes in another direction, so make sure to keep it at 90. Usually you can, of course you can change it. And the damping ratio is how much it oscillates before it stops. So if it's 0, it just falls off the wheel. If it's 1, the wheel stays in the same place. And that was it for today, guys. I hope you liked this tutorial. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.